Denmark Street is a street on the edge of London's West End running from Charing Cross Road to St Giles. It is near St Giles in the Fields Church and Tottenham Court Road station. The street was developed in the late 17th century and named after Prince George of Denmark. Since the 1950s it has been associated with British popular music, first via publishers and later by recording studios and music shops. A blue plaque was unveiled in 2014 commemorating the street's importance to popular music. The street was originally residential, but became used for commercial purposes in the 19th century. At first, metalwork was a popular trade, but it became most famous as Britain's Tin Pan Alley, housing numerous music publishers' offices. This market declined in the 1960s to be replaced by music shops and independent recording studios. The Rolling Stones recorded at Regent Sounds Studio at No. 4, and popular musicians often socialised around the Gioconda café copyright at No. 9, including David Bowie and the Small Faces. The Sex Pistols lived above No. 6, and recorded their first demos there. The comic book store, Forbidden Planet, and the Helter Skelter music bookshop have also been based on the street. In the 2010s, the surrounding area was redeveloped. Parts of Denmark Street are listed to protect them, but other parts, away from the street itself, are planned to be demolished. Location: Denmark Street is located at the southern end of the London Borough of Camden, close to its boundary with the London Borough of Westminster. It is east of Soho Square, south of St Giles Circus and close to the St Giles in the Fields Church. The street is 108 metres long and connects Charing Cross Road with St Giles High Street. Vehicular traffic is now only allowed to travel westbound. The nearest London Underground station is Tottenham Court Road, between 2 and 3 minutes walk away. History: Early history: the land on which Denmark Street lies was formerly part of the grounds for St Giles Hospital, founded as a house for lepers in the early 12th century by Henry I's wife, Matilda. In 1612, it was recorded as being owned by Tristram Gibbs. The grounds were laid out for development during the reign of James II and developed by Samuel Fortray and Jacques Wiseman in the late 1680s. Historical evidence suggests the street was formed between 1682 and 1687, as it was not shown on Morden and Lee's map of 1682. It was named after Prince George of Denmark, who had married Princess Anne in 1683. By 1691, 20 houses had been completed, of which 8 remain standing. Dr. John Purcell, a London physician who published a treatise on vapours or hysteric fits, lived at No. 10 in 1730, while the Reverend Dr. John James Magendie who became Canon of Windsor lived there from 1758 to 1771. The painter Johann Zoffany lived at No. 9. In the late 18th century, the Jacobite Sir John Murray lived there until the day he was carried off by a party of strange men. The area around the street was known as the Rookery of St Giles, which developed in the 18th century as an unplanned slum to the west of the city, and described as a Pandora's box of pollution, plague and pestilence. Though much of the area was cleared by the end of the 19th century, Denmark Street is the only street in London to retain 17th-century terraced facades on both sides. In 2010, a study by Camden London Borough Council suggested that only 6 other streets in London have a comparable heritage to Denmark Street. A small court connected by passages runs along the back of the north side of the street, connecting to it via an opening at No. 27. The street started being used for commercial purposes at the beginning of the 19th century and houses were converted for commercial use. Ground floors became used as shops, while upper floors and back rooms were used as workshops, particularly for metalwork. Augustus Siebe, the pioneer of the diving helmet, lived and worked on the street, and today there is an English heritage blue plaque commemorating him on the house where he lived. In the 1930s, several Japanese businesses were established in the street, which became known as Little Tokyo. Azakami and Company at No. 6 sold books, newspapers, televisions and radios. The Tokiwa restaurant and hotel were based at No. 8 and No. 22 respectively, having moved from Charing Cross Road in 1927. Other businesses included a hairdresser, jewelers, tailor and gift shop. Tin Pan Alley, 1920s or Euro 50s. Lawrence Wright was the first music publisher to set up premises on Denmark Street in 1911. He was initially based at number 8 and moved to number 11 after World War I. He subsequently founded the musician's journal Melody Maker in 1926. The same year, another music publisher, Campbell Connolly, moved from their original offices in Tottenham Court Road to Denmark Street. The New Musical Express was founded at number 5 in 1952 and remained there until 1964. By the end of the 1950s, the street had established itself as Britain's Tin Pan Alley, and housed numerous music publishers and other venues connected with the business. Larry Parnes became a successful manager and entrepreneur of pop singers during the mid-1950s, and regularly took material from songwriters and publishers based in Denmark Street. Lionel Bart, writer of the musical Oliver, started his writing career for publishers and was subsequently known as the King of Denmark Street. 1960s. The music publishing trade on Denmark Street began to decline during the 1960s, as the traditional producers lost touch with changing tastes and groups like the Rolling Stones showed it was possible to write their own material. For example, Paul Simon was based in London at this time, but Mills Music at number 20 told him that his songs Homeward Bound and The Sound of Silence were uncommercial. However, recording studios based in the street remained popular. James Baring opened Regent Sounds Studio at number 4 in July 1961 to serve as a unit for publishers to record their songs. The studio was based above the offices of Essex Music and was subsequently owned by then Stones manager Andrew Loog Oldham. The band recorded their first album at Regent in 1964 and the single Not Fade Away became their first major hit to be recorded there. Oldham liked the atmosphere in the studio as he could stretch out a bit, experiment and learn from our mistakes. The studios eventually expanded and moved into new premises on Tottenham Court Road, while the Denmark Street premises became the sales office. They were subsequently bought by Eddie Karsner at the end of the 1960s. Publishers Box and Cox had their offices at number 7. Their greatest hit was I've Got a Lovely Bunch of Coconuts. Southern Music, at number 8, also had a studio in the ground floor, which was used to record Donovan's hit, Catch the Wind. The Carter and Lewis songwriting partnership evolved when John Carter and Ken Lewis arrived in London in 1959 and decided if you want to be in the music business, that Denmark Street was the place to be. That was the rule. Session musicians such as Jimmy Page and John Paul Jones regularly played in Denmark Street studios. In 1964, the Kinks with Page on guitar and John Lord on piano, recorded You Really Got Me in one of the basement studios. Musicians often socialized around the Gioconda café, copyright at number 9. David Bowie recruited his first backing band, the Lower Third, in the bar, while the Small Faces formed after the original members socialized around the Gioconda. Other regular patrons included David Bowie and Jimi Hendrix. In April 2014, a number of music industry figures, including Mike Reed, unveiled a blue plaque above the premises that included a QR code to access a multimedia presentation about the history of music. 1970s. In 1970, Elton John wrote Your Song, his first hit single, in Denmark Street. He had got his first job at a music publisher's in the street in 1963. He mentioned the street in his 1974 song Bitter Fingers, on the semi-autobiographical concept album Captain Fantastic and the Brown Dirt Cowboy. Also in 1970, a song named Denmark Street appeared on the Kinks album Lola vs. Powerman and the Money Go Round, Part 1. Manager Malcolm McLaren asked architect Ben Kelly to refurbish a basement rehearsal room he had bought from Badfinger. The Sex Pistols rehearsed in this room, lived above number 6, and recorded their first demos there. Johnny Rotten drew cartoons of the members as graffiti which turned up later in an archaeological survey of the site. Scott Gorham bought his first guitar with Thin Lizzy on Denmark Street. He had turned up at the audition with a Japanese Les Paul Copia Euro. When he got the job, Phil Lynott took him shopping on Denmark Street. After being told several guitars were too expensive, he settled on a Sunburst Gibson Les Paul Deluxe. Andy's Guitars was established in 1978 at number 27 and survived for many years before closing in 2007 due to increased shop rates. The comic and science fiction bookshop, Forbidden Planet, started at number 23 in 1978 before moving to New Oxford Street and becoming an international chain. When Douglas Adams attempted to attend a signing for the first The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy book in October 1979, the queue to the shop was so long that Adams thought a demonstration was taking place elsewhere. 1980s are Euro-present. By 1980, there were a number of illegal nightclubs operating on Denmark Place, running adjacent to the street, that were popular with South American immigrants to London. The clubs were housed in buildings that previously made up a hostel for musicians, which adjoined a music shop on the street, and the fire brigade had insisted that a fire escape be fitted. By the time the clubs were in operation, the shop had closed and the fire escape had fallen into disrepair. On August 14, a disgruntled clubber was ejected and locked out from a venue, and in response, poured petrol through the letterbox and set fire to it. The resulting fire killed 37 people and was described as the worst fire in London for loss of life since World War II. Numbers 1 a Euro 3 had become a job centre by the 1980s, specialising in vacancies for the catering industry. The serial killer Dennis Nilsen worked there and, for a Christmas party in 1980, brought in a large cooking pot in which he had boiled the heads of his victims. In May 1990, Andy Preston, owner of Andy's Guitars, set up a traders association and attempted to have the street rebranded as Music Land, similar to Drury Lane being marked Theatland and Gerrard Street as Chinatown. Helter Skelter was set up as a bookshop dedicated to music titles in 1995 by Sean Boddy. The shop operated at the old Essex Music and Regent Sound building at number 4 until rising rents forced it to close in 2004. Redevelopment. In 2009, Denmark Street was identified in English Heritage's Heritage at Risk Register as being at risk in view of the nearby development of Crossrail. Particular attention was drawn to number 26, which is a Grade II listed building. In 2010, Camden London Borough Council identified the street and adjacent properties as a conservation area. In 2013, the council announced that Denmark Street would be redeveloped by the architectural firm ORMS as part of a major development in conjunction with the Crossrail construction work around Tottenham Court Road Tube Station and Centre Point. The proposed development includes the construction of an 800-seat subterranean performance venue. Numbers 1 a Euro 6 and 17 a Euro 21 Denmark Place, which run parallel along the back of the street, and the York and Clifton mansions will be demolished, along with partial demolition of number 21 Denmark Street. The scheme has been condemned by the local music industry and shopkeepers. Writer Henry Scott Irvin launched a petition to stop the planned redevelopment, which has gathered 10,000 signatures. In an interview to Mojo, Scott Irvin said this should be stopped, adding that Denmark Street should be given full heritage status like Covent Garden Market, Hatton Garden and Savile Row. He has also discovered that, although demolition is scheduled to start in October or November 2014, the plans have not yet been approved by the newly elected Borough Council. Consolidated Developments, developers for the new site, stated they were committed to preserving and enhancing the rich musical heritage of Tin Pan Alley. Current occupants. On the corner of the street with Charing Cross Road is Chris Bryant's Musical Instruments. Denmark Street Guitars claims to have over 3,000 instruments in stock and to have the largest selection of guitars in the UK. Regent Sounds, which specializes in Fender and Gretsch guitars, is based at the same location as the 1960s Studios and Essex Music at number 4. The Alley Cat Bar and Club sits in the basement below the store. No Tom Vintage and Classic Guitars has a store at number 6, while Sax.co, a dedicated saxophone shop at number 21, has a range of over 200 saxophones. Macari's, a guitar retailer, was established in 1958 and specializes in Gibson models. As well as their shop at number 25, they have an additional shop nearby on Charing Cross Road. The sheet music shop Argents is currently based at number 19. It was founded by the Zombies. Rod Argent as a keyboard shop and was previously based next door, at number 20. Since then it has undergone 2 changes of owners and now specializes in sheet music and DVD sales, covering a wide variety of styles including jazz and classical. Rose Morris have been established in Denmark Street since 1919. Originally based at number 11, they now occupy number 10 in the former offices of Southern Music Publishing. The company became the first British distributor of Rickenbacker guitars in 1962, which had a surge in popularity after musicians noticed the Beatles' John Lennon playing one. Rose Morris purchased instruments directly from Rickenbacker's factory instead of their sales office, in order to keep up with demand. The British models carry unique serial numbers such as the 325, the Rose Morris 1996. The Early Music Shop's London branch is based on the first floor of number 11, above Rose Morris. The shop contains early music instruments including recorders and sheet music. There has been a recording studio in the basement of number 22 since Tin Pan Alley Studios was established in 1954. It was originally founded by session violinist Ralph Ellman, and was previously the premises of the Acid Jazz Records label. In 2013, producer Guy Katsav took over management of the premises, renaming them Denmark Street Studios. At number 26 is 12 Bar Club, a small live music venue with a capacity of about 100 people which was established in 1994. The building was originally stables, built in 1635, before becoming a blacksmith's until after World War I. Listed buildings, Denmark Street has 8 Grade II listed buildings. Though the refurbishment plans allow modernization of these buildings, the council are keen to ensure that the affected properties remain solely in use for the music industry. A report added, music industry activities make a fundamental contribution to the special character of Denmark Street and support associated retail provision. References, footnotes. Citations. Bibliography. External links. London's Best Music Shops a Euro 20-something London, 360° view, London's Tin Pan Alley a Euro Danny Baker's Musical History Tour on BBC Radio 2.